Okay. So first of all, good afternoon, all of you, and thank you very much for the invitations. And I really glad to just give my talk in this topic. So that normally a procedure that is a very common procedure and a very essential procedure as per the chronic pain management perspective is considered. So the topic given to me is the radiofrequency ablation. So basically for the chronic pain, if you say it's a considered the pain, it may be considered as a chronic pain. And overview. So the chronic pain patient that you see in the mostly daily clinic that you get referral from the patients of spinal pain or the trigeminal orificial pain or many condition that basically sympathetic pain, and so many condition that need the definitive management after a diagnostic block to go for a long-term management of that pain. So for that, the radiofrequency ablation is very essential role. So just try to see what exactly by this and what are the point to be considered. So just to declare there is no conflict of interest, I've taken some evidence from PubMed and also some images and Google for my talk. So if you say the history of the radiofrequency ablation, it is not new. The technique has started since 1920. And if you see the initially that is again the neurosurgeon has been gone through these phases because they have seen the patient in the to give something the technique that after or beyond surgery. So some of the patient may not be good candidate for surgery. So what are the options for them to provide? So 1920s the Cushing's did series of experiments to show the utility of the radiofrequency ablation. And after that, it started the journey in 1930. Again, if you see the trigeminal neuralgia, all must be seeing and a pain physician and also neurosurgeon. This condition, something that is a suicidal disease, the patient is excruciating pain, pain that has basically a pain of lifetime. So that again, the same patient sometimes you are not fit for the MBD, or in that case, the options is again land on basically the RF ablation of the gastrin ganglion. So this is how the intervention basically came, and if in the 1950s, one of the very important landmarks here that Cosman and RF, they put the first commercially available RF generator, because the machine that is came in practice in 1950s, that Cosman company, that machine, I think many of those are old, basically practicing pain. This is the machine that is used by many, even in our department also. This machine I have used since I think before the new machine in years. So if you see the consider the radiofrequency ablation, is there are different types of ablation, or if it's the radiofrequency considered, there is different types. If you just broadly classify, one is basically the continuous RF, that is a CRF that is most commonly done from those patients of which genicular RF, or some of the patient that sensory, basically it's not a motor nerve. The another component is basically the non-destructive. If you see the CRF, the continuous RF, that there is some the thermal lesion, basically there is destruction of the nerves. But in case of a non-destructive, some of the nerve that cannot be damaged, that is a non-destructive modulation. So there is a neuromodulation phenomenon, that is a pulsed RF. The third one is a cold RF, that is the new advanced technology, but is basically if you see the CRF and PRF, that again I will consider later on. The third burst of the RF, that in between the pulse there is a basically the limiting a silence phase, and the burst of RF is delivered for 20 milliseconds, and in between the silent period basically the heat dissipate to the tissues that without damaging the tissues. So in case of a cooled RF, it is the advanced technology that is more with the water cooled channel is there, so that the heat will not be the patient, the tissue will not be charred, and the heat of the will be properly dissipated among the tissues, giving a bigger lesion in that. So another technique is basically the two electrode placed side by side, that causes a bipolar lesion. So that is a bipolar RF. So these are the broadly the four RF condition that is there. So if you see the lesion compared with the conventional RF versus a cooled RF versus a bipolar RF, the lesion sizes or the lesion morphology is different in that way. So just continues one by one. If you see the consider the basic of what exactly a continuous RF is. So if you see the RF generators basically delivers a minimally invasive, as you say, it's an image guided procedure that might be an ultrasound, or mostly we do on the fluoroscopy also. It uses the radio waves that is around 500 kilohertz frequency to generate the heat, and that destroy the targeted tissues such as the pain transmitting nerves. So the target selective, basically neurodestructive procedure is this. Most common, if you can see the patient with facetogenic pain that has a middle branch is most of the contributor to that. So most common procedure that is done. And in this case, if you see, there is protein denaturation, that is thermocoagulation occurred, and the nerve signal is damaged. And subsequently, if you see, this is lead to a vulnar degeneration for that. So that means there is nerve damage in this case of a continuous RF. So that's why also you have to consider this procedure selectively, in which case you want that vulnar degeneration for this. If you see the indication of RF, is a clinical practice, yes, all were clinician. So many conditions that as an intervention pain procedure that using RF technology, if you see the concept the head and neck pain, many patient that is trigeminal neuralgia or some of the headache, which are the post-herpetic neuralgia or occipital neuralgia. Many patient the spinal pain, if you see the spinal pain is one of the most common condition that bombard with the pain clinic or the patient with the orthopedician, neurosurgeon. If you see 60 to 80% many patient has, if the degenerative spine, they all have mostly the mania, the one of the pain generated the facet. If you see, consider that. Some of the radiculopathy, if you see, though sometimes if the surgery also doesn't work in that way, but in some cases you have to initial part that doesn't fit for a surgery, you have to target the dorsal root ganglion that needs some sort of RF, that is maybe a pulsed RF. So there are certain modality that can be used in clinical practice of this technique. So I'm not going to the other modality in that way, because cancer pain and other pain modality like a joint pain, so knee joint, shoulder joint, in all basically the chronic pain condition, RF has a definitive role. If you see by the guidelines or the evidence-based practice that we normally would do, it has a very good recommendation in chronic or low back pain, where if you see the facet joint pain, one of the considered, in that way it is a middle branch block has been given a level 2 recommendation for a radiofrequency ablation. If you see the intra-articular injections, basically sometimes it is not ideally recommended in that way. But if you consider the other condition like a chronic neck pain as well, that the facet or the pain coming from the facet joint, so middle branch block has been targeted for that and also the giving good result. So what are the equipments for this RF ablation? If you see, this is the RF generator that is that I already shown in that way. It has two electrode and the probes that conduct the RF energy, and there is some sensing mechanism like temperature and the impedance control. So another important part is the sensory and motor stimulation. It is one of the very important part for doing the stimulation. Why? To differentiate the basically the see the at what stimulus the pain is generated, and also rule out the motor component. So if you see the component in this case, if you see there is a generator is there, there is a grounding pad and the active electrode. Basically this is a monopolar RF setting in this case. The current is generating to the RF electrode, and basically this particular electric port is placed and the needle is placed close to that neural structure. So if you see the components, if you very closely see, this machine has different monitoring system. If you see, the first is to the impedance, second is basically stimulation. The stimulation in this case, if you do, there is two types of stimulation. Mostly the sensory stimulation is done to know exactly at what voltage or at what current the patient is having the sensing the similar type of pain. And also it has another component that is the motor stimulation, so that you can have a sensory motor differentiation, and also you can see the at what stimulation that you are having somebody important structure is there close by and you are giving motor stimulation. Another important is the output, basically the RF output. If you decide to go for a pulsed RF or a continuous RF, based on that you select on that and just select your output, basically the current or what exactly you want to do, and the time. So basically the 60 second or the 90 second, that single cycle is there. In some cases pulsed RF, basically you go for a longer duration, those were neuromodulation, but in case of a RF, is conventional RF 60 to 90 second is done and repeating the cycle in that way. If you see the cannula, if you see most commonly used is electrodes are available in various length and sizes or diameter. If the RF cannula is a 5 or 6, basically 10, 15 or 20 centimeter length, and if you see the closely use this tip, so it has an insulated part and an active tip. So the active tip is basically, if you see, this is the area that we are going to place the or the put the probe that's close to that nerve. And based on the thickness, it differs from the different gauges from 20 to 22 gauge, and the active tip also the length also differ 2 millimeter, 5 millimeter, 10 and 15 mm. So this basically decision depend on the which basically area you want to do, and also sometimes the curve and straight. The needle also sometimes curved and straight to increase the capture rate. Sometimes the nerve is not very close to that, so that if it is a curve, then it chances that it might be the nerve capture might be more in that way. There are certain newer modality also coming up. This is the Trident needle that is not, I think, available in India right now, but it's yes, it is in the outside US, it is there. The venom needle, the last one is the basically the venom needle that is, I think, given with the Stryker. So the other new component in the RF needles is there. So as I told you, regarding stimulation part is very important to sensory motor dissociation before going for the treatment modality. And also decide exactly the length at which part you are getting the. So it decide the electrode or the nerve distance. If you see, you are getting a stimulation that is around 0.6 volt, that means it's more or less the nerve is around 3 millimeter. If you are getting a 2 volt, that means the nerve is away. So that means if you are doing it to RF, that means you are getting a sensory stimulation at around 0.4 to 0.6, so that it is over that, because the lesion is going to form around 2 to 3 millimeter around the needle only. So beyond that, even if you are getting a stimulation at a higher voltage, the lesion may not be created at the respective site. So that's why it is very important to the stimulation part. So what exactly happened in the ionic heating, or the principle of heating in this RF? So if you see, the current is basically that create ions in the surrounding tissues move, that create a friction. So that friction hits the surrounding tissues, and that the thermocouple basically that sense the temperature. And if you see the probe, basically the placement of that area, so that temperature rises on that area. So if you see the placement of the RF generator, and the probe electrode is placed around the area along the grounding pad, and this impedance is also again is important to see at resistance. This is a resistance circuit to the current, that's basically that confirm that if you're getting a impedance, that means that's continue the circuit is complete. And also it also difference between the different tissues. Basically when the needle is moving in that way, we're expecting around a 250 or 300 of resistance, so that if suppose a bone is there, if you consider the impedance, the bone gives the most resistance, the spinal cord, CSF blood. So basically the impedance is differs in that way. So for the neural tissues, we normally consider around 250 to 300 resistance. Sometimes there might be the structure is close to the bone. So in that case, it gives a high impedance. In that case, you can use the saline or something, so that the impedance will be decreased, and also that improves the lesion formation. So if you see the temperature distribution, how does in a conventional or the continuous RF, how does the temperature is distributed? If you see this, basically the active tip is there. So the lesion is formed along the nerve longitudinal. That means the more you go away from your probe, the active tip, the temperature drops. So the maximum tissue charring, that is a destruction, occurs around that. And the neuroduction, if you see that the more than 45 degrees Celsius, there is neuroduction occur. And also if you go away from that, some zone of some reversible temperature there, because the temperature is decreased. So that is the area, the reversible zone or reversible damage around that. So if you see the more than 80 degree ocular region occur. So needle placement, as I said, this is basically the nerve has to be placed parallel to that. If this is an example of basically the middle branch block. So if you see here, the needle has to be placed parallel to along the course of the middle branch, and then the lesion has to be done, so that the lesion will be formed around that along the longitudinal aspect of the nerve. So this is the way the needle has to be placed, and also you can check by the fluoroscopy. So as I say, the lesion, the shape of that, it is a spheroid or the ovoid side. It depends on the electricity configuration, that if the deep temperature, how it is there, or the local tissue characteristics, and the time. These are all the factors that basically, if you see, consider the different factors that contribute to the lesion formation. So based on the different tissues, again, if you know, of course, variation. Suppose sometime it might be seeing ultrasound, you are seeing directly the nerve. That means you might be can be placed very close to the nerve. Might be sometimes the tip shape or the cannula gauze, the higher gauze size might be from a bigger size. In some cases, the monopolar, bipolar, the cooled RF, depending on that different technique, the lesion size differs. If you see the tip length, basically, so the 15 mm active tip has the lesion size bigger along that radiation. If you consider the gauze of the bigger size of the needle, in this case, if you see the gauze is increasing, and that way it's giving lesion is bigger. If it's the temperature, and again the time also, it's again depend on how the initial part when the temperature rising, basically normally the initial part that the temperature rises, the maximum lesion occur. So that if you see the beyond 30 or 40 seconds, the lesion doesn't increase more. So there's no change beyond 60 seconds. And that's why the lesion timing doesn't increase by 60 to 90. So many a time RF cycle is getting repeated rather than a prolonged time. So a conditioned RF, you don't do for more than a 90 seconds. Mostly if you see in the CRF, it's basically where the temperature will increase and the tissue become charred, and there will be no lesion. So that's the importance when you have put a good or basically the temperature is controlled. So another modality is pulsed RF. So what exactly you need a pulsed RF? The pulsed RF differs in that way. This is not a continuous one. So the lesion is basically the current is basically supplied in between a pulse, 20 millisecond, and there is basically the silent period where the heat is getting dissipated. So here there is no any thermal or nerve destruction, rather it is neuromodulation. And it works by modulating the nerve activity, reduce the neuropathic, radicular, and the joint pain, mostly a different indication. And in this case, if you see the mechanism, as I think it's still undergoing so much of research regarding the nociceptive signaling or inflammatory path. So if you see, so that's how this mechanism also differs as compared to here. And if you see the DRG is one of the conditions that normally we do for the radicular pain, the PRF, pulse radio frequency ablation for this duration around 3 minutes or 5 minutes, that modulate your radicular pain in those patients who are having that. So these are the difference in that way. Again, in this case, there is heat production there, and also the main issue is the neuromodulation part as compared to RF. This overview of that is basically different with the conventional versus the pulsed RF, where exactly neuroability versus neuromodulation. And as you say that the indication also differs in that way. So there are another tips is basically you can see if you see if you are putting an RF in that way, you make sure that a little tip should be very close to that nerve, so that the width is not going to more than that. The next, another important part is basically the cooled RF during the ablation. This is something that is newer advancements, whether because if the temperature is going beyond that, the tissue charring occurs because of the temperature. So if something can cool down the tip, so if you see the probe tip temperature is still it's cooled down by the 60 degree and the tissue temperature 80 degree, that means the lesion size will increase. So this is a cooled RF needle, something different. It's a gauge is bit of more. This is a machine that has a pump and a motor for a RF, basically the water channel that is circulate, and the needle is basically the water is cooled. Is if you see in this, the water is there is output and input, and the water is circulated, and the temperatures get down. So active cooling of the tip occurs, that leads to bigger lesion size. The difference in that case, sometimes when you do a cooled RF for the middle branch, in this case the needle placement is perpendicular. That means in that case the technique is a bit of more different, because you have to put the parallel. But in case of a cooled RF, you can directly put it here, because the needle lesion is formed just in front of that. That means in front of the tip also. See, this is mostly the procedure that is done in that way. Scotic view, and the needle is just at the same gun barrel view the plate is placed. And you can use a lateral view also confirm that if the lesion at the 60 degree. So that is what the difference between the probe position. Basically in this case, if you see once you put the stellate and the probe, in this case normally there is a gap of 2 millimeters. So the disadvantage in this case is maybe because the lesion is formed in front of that. So if you take out the stellate and put the probe, that means it's giving a circle more of a spherical side. So I'm just coming to my end. So the lesion morphology is something different in this case, because in this case spherical form of descent as compared to the conventional RF. And if you see the again initial part in the cooled RF, there is a cool phase, and then so around the tissue interface basically the temperature is less. So that's how the tissue charring doesn't occur and give a good lesion size. Again, same thing, that is normally the difference. This is the bipolar RF sometimes is done for the basically the disc or bipolarplasty is done, or sometimes the knee RF also. In that case, if the two electrode is placed close by, and if you see the electric current, it passes with the two closely placed electrode rather than from the grounding pad. So in this case, sometimes there is, if you see the lesion side is most bigger as compared to single conventional or the continuous RF. So this how the lesion size can be increased depending on the which area I want to do the ablation. So risk and complication, if you consider it is minimally invasive, if compared to many other infections, it's very rare, but sometimes it's possible. You have to maintain some strict asepsis. Nerve damage might be possible because if you are improper placement, and sometimes you are working against a very close area. Pain recurrence, yes, you have to explain the patient that this pain might come again because the nerve is going to regenerate over time in a different way. Chances of skin burns is there because of here the poor grounding, or sometimes if you are using the probe very close to the skin, there might be procedural pains, failure. These are all everything can be patient to explain to the patient. So the last of the key message is that it is minimally invasive. There is no major surgery required for this. It's an OPD procedure. Sometimes patient is coming and the discharge. Effective pain relief in some cases can last months to years. Sometimes it again differs from patient to patient. You cannot say that every patient the same procedure will last. The recovery is quick, patient can go home the same day, and the risk is less as compared to the other. Thank you very much.